Y'all come in and sit down. We gotta talk. They are saying Diddy is about to go broke. Now let's talk about it, y'all. Diddy thought he dodged the big one. No Smex trafficking conviction, no Rico convent conviction, just about 2 man at conventions, and this man thought he was just going tiptoe out the door with some bail. Now listen, Judge Aaron told him to sit down before he sits them down. But y'all, let's actually talk about how Diddy forgot one thing, the civil cases. And now Jane Doe, the us courts, and every person who's ever got flown out under pressure just got a legal cheat code and they're coming straight for his money. Y'all, let's get into this because all I gotta say is, baby, we love to see it. Now, first of all, I want everybody on the internet to understand what Diddy was actually convicted of and why it's a civil lawsuit, Gold Marine. All right, so let's get into it because this part matters more than people and the Diddy supporters realize. A lot of folks heard Mann Act and thought it was some dusty technical law. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it is dope. It is rooted in racism, white slavery. However, over the years, it evolved and is one now the most powerful tools that prosecutors use in sex trafficking. All right, y'all got that. Now let's get into this. All right, so the Mann Act now is a federal mex crime statute, and baby, it has teeth. It carries prison time up to 20 years. And if you plead guilty or you're convicted, that stays on your record for life. Now, baby, Diddy was convicted. So what exactly was Diddy convicted of? Under U.S. Code 2421, the Mann Act makes it a federal felony to knowingly transport a person across state lines for the purposes of illegal SMEWA activity, whether that's prostitutes or coercive SMEWA arrangements that violate state or federal law. Now let's break this down legally because I need for people in the back to hear this. Knowingly means it wasn't accidental. You booked the flights, you arranged the hotel, you knew what was going to happen. For illegal SMEWA activity includes SMEX under coercion, fraud, drugs, manipulation, or exploitation, not just formal prostitution. And crossing state lines turns it into a federal offense, not just a local scandal. And that's exactly what federal prosecutors allege that he did multiple times over multiple years to multiple women and the escorts. So even if the charges were sealed, okay, and even if he didn't serve time, which they are not sealed, and he would say he is going to serve time of conviction or guilty plea. Under the Mann Act means the federal government proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he uses power, wealth, and transportation access to commit SMEX trials, sex crimes. Maybe let that sit in. No, literally let it. Okay, now let's see. Now here's why the conviction is a civil lawsuit jackpot. It removes the burden of proof for future plaintiffs. That's right. Jane Doe and the escorts don't need to prove that Diddy intended to exploit them across state lines. All they have to do is show up and say, Yana, here's his federal conviction. He's already been found guilty of doing this exact thing. They don't need him to be convicted of sex trafficking. They only need to show by a preponderance of the evidence that it's more likely than not that he harmed them. A Mann Act conviction is like a neon sign for the judge saying this man has done this before. This isn't theoretical. The Mann Act makes him legally vulnerable even without jail time. Because let's be clear, Diddy may be able to avoid a lengthy prison sentence, but legally he's now a convicted SMX offender under federal law. That's admissible, that's powerful, and in a civil court, baby, that's money. The survivors don't need to prove consent was absent. They don't need to prove, oh, I didn't consent, I didn't want it. They don't have to sit up in front of those juries
and no
listen to them
longer
watch
has a
all their
voice who
horrors
will
and being
pursue
like,
justice
nah,
for her
The law has
accusation.
already said it didn't matter
As of the
because under
taken
Mann
against
Act,
Diddy,
consent
no
isn't
expansion
valid
of
if
the
sexual activity
investigation,
involved
no
fraud,
isolation
manipulation,
orders,
or abuse of
no
power.
equipment
So when people
access,
say, well,
no
they agreed to
suspension of
go,
attorney
the court has
communication.
already decided the agreement was not legally valid. You cannot legally agree to let somebody exploit you like that. Now here's the translation for the timeline and the people in the back. Diddy just didn't take a PR hit, y'all. He was legally branded as someone who exploits women using power, travel, and coercion, even if he never wears an orange jumpsuit. And he will. Even the best estimate, Mark Garagos, has him as a year. His money is now on the table and the bill is coming due. But y'all, let's also focus on the civil fallout. Okay. How this one? Well, actually, these two convictions opened the lawsuit floodgates. Diddy's Mann convention didn't close that chapter. It cracked the safe open because now, well, actually, yeah. Now that Diddy's been formally convicted of a federal sex crime, what's that mean? Take a guess. Every person who has ever been flown out, locked down, coerced, rugged, assaulted, manipulated, or just controlled by this man in a spectral context, baby, they have legal ammo. Who are we talking about? Jane Doe, the escorts, any background dancers, industry girlfriends, paid for plus ones. I'm just saying. And did he pay for their time, not their body? And the ones who were told this is how it works, get used to it. And anyone who had to play alone to survive now thanks to collateral, estoppel, a legal term. Diddy can't just show up in court and say, I didn't do that, because the federal government already said yes, you did in fact do that. The Mann Act conviction means every survivor's legal team gets to skip step 1. They don't have to prove if he's guilty. They get to focus on how much he owes. And baby, of course, this is about money, not prison. But again, don't let people screw you with the oak. Okay, don't let people screw you with the oak yoke. Oak. Oak. Oh no, why are you doing civil? You just want money. Hell yeah, run that fool's pockets up. Because without that money, these people wouldn't be on their hands and knees begging for pennies doing his evil work. All right? This is about money, not prison. The criminal court gave us the label. The civil court is going to send the invoice. Under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act and the related civil statutes, these survivors can now sue for pain and suffering, psychological trauma, emotional distress, loss of income, punitive damage, attorney's fees, and lifetime therapy costs. And those numbers add up fast. If one woman wins a $5 million judgment, that sets a precedence for the next, and the next, and the next. And this is how predators lose everything after the verdict. Diddy is now one mistake away from losing it all forever. And baby, we love to see it and hear, because you guys, I don't care. Listen, this is a point of discourse, but even a fool can see that right now. And by fools, I mean everybody but his supporters outside can see that. Now that there's a federal conviction on record, Diddy can never afford another mistake. If another Jane comes forward tomorrow, if he loses his temper in a hotel suite, if a party gets filmed, if a former assistant comes clean, or if an escort feels emboldened, baby Diddy is done. Because that one new lawsuit, that lawyer just walks in with the Mann Act paperwork and says, look at the pattern. He did this before. He's doing it again. The judge doesn't need a full trial. The judge doesn't need to guess. They already know who he is. And this time he can't claim innocence. He already signed that away. Baby, this is the final word on this fallout. Day 5 of the Diddy trial. Diddy trial verdict. Fallout, I guess. Did he thought that literally only being convicted of those 2 counts could save his empire? But what he really did was hand every survivor the legal weapon they were missing. He thought it was over, but the truth is that signature under the Mann Act just made it open season for his life. Again, I want you guys to know, he pleaded guilty on 2 counts. And it's not even what he pleaded guilty for, it's what he admitted on the record. Mark Agnapilio admitted he was very violent, admitted he did all those horrible things. That's why he got denied bail. Everything he admitted in that court can be used in a civil suit. Baby, again, the Mann Act blew the door open. And get this, the feds might not be done. The Mann Act wasn't just a slap on the wrist, it was a wedge, a crack in the dam, and now the water is rushing in civilly and perhaps even criminally. Let's be clear, when the federal court convicts you under the Mann Act, you don't just lose reputation, you lose protection. How well? How about this? First, the civil floodgates are wide open. Every woman who thought, well, I can't sue, no one would believe me, now has something powerful in their corner. A federal conviction confirming this man used SMMT's power and interstate travel to exploit women. This is the legal equivalent of blood in the water, and that sharks are circling with lawsuits, lawyers, and trauma
present,
timelines,
and no
the
longer
Trafficking
has a
Victims
voice who will
Protecting
pursue
Act.
justice
That's
for
a
her
treaty
accusation.
which works hand in hand with the Mann
As of the
Act,
taken against
gives
Diddy,
survivors up to
no
10 years
expansion
from
of the
date
investigation,
discovery to
no
file
isolation
civil claims
orders,
for coerce,
no equipment
drug fuel
access,
manipulation,
no suspension of
emotional
attorney
and psychological
communication.
abuse, commercial exploitation, and anything tied to a pattern of grooming and trafficking. And the best part is, they don't need a new conviction. They just need to say, this happened to me too, and it matches what he's already been convicted of. This is copy and paste civil court goal, but here's the cold truth. He's not safe criminally either. And this is the one thing these Diddy supporters don't want to admit. Diddy thinks this Mann Act conviction was
Taken
the end
against
of it.
Diddy.
A sealed
No
deal,
expansion of
a
the
quiet
investigation,
close, but that's
no
not how
isolation
feds play
orders,
the long game.
no
Let's
equipment
look at the R.
access,
Kelly
no
blueprint.
suspension
First
of
case,
attorney communication.
acquitted. Second, mistrial. Third, media circus. No charges. Fourth swing. Boom. Federal trafficking conviction. Decades behind bars. The DOJ took 4 tries to build a perfect criminal case, and when they hit, baby, they hit hard. Same with Epstein, same with Weinstein. Pattern cases take time, and now the Mann Act conviction. The 2 of them has done 2 dangerous things for Diddy. It preserved criminal liability, because if any new victim steps forward with a fresh federal violation, or if any past violations falls within the statute of limitations, the feds can reopen an investigation with and file new charges. And this time they bring the pattern, and they might still get the RICO. Now I know what you're saying. Double jeopardy. They can never try him for RICO again. Yes, for the trafficking of Cassie and Jane, but for anybody else, still open season. So again, like I said, let's just say Did he lose his temper again like he allegedly did with Jane? Let's say the former employee hands over those rumored videos. Let's say someone flips a driver, a manager, a fixer. If one more credible case lands on a prosecutor's desk, Diddy is not just writing checks, he's doing time. Diddy is in a holding pattern, y'all. One step from collapse. Now, right now, again, this is dangerous legal limbo. The feds have enough to expose him. The civil suits are lining up to bankrupt him. One more misstep, and he is R. Kelly too. He doesn't even have to assault anyone new. If a case from 2016-17 surfaces and falls within the 10-year window, he could be charged under the same law he just literally got convicted of. But this time it's gonna be worse, and because he's already a convicted SMEX offender, the next jury won't be asking if, they'll be asking how many years. Baby Diddy tried to close the door with a sealed deal, but what he really did was leave it unlocked and light a fire on the way out. Civilly, he's vulnerable. Criminally, he's on probation without papers. Financially, the invoices are coming. Baby, one misstep, one more Jane, one more temper tantrum. And the government that let him slide this? I'm sorry, not the government. The jury that let him slide this time, baby. They will swing again. And next time they're saying they might not miss. Woo! Baby, this is some heavy stuff. What do y'all think about this? Because at the end of the day, Jane's case is just a start. Jane Doe may potentially file suit again. If she did, it would outline rugging, rape, psychological control, and exploitation across multiple states, the exact blueprint for the Mann Act charges. And because Diddy has already pled guilty to similar behavior, her legal team has momentum. But what happens when the escorts file? What happens when a second Jane Doe, if they exist, steps forward, or a third or a fourth or a if even one wins a multi-million-dollar verdict? The rest will follow. This isn't a gossip headline anymore. It's mass tort territory. You guys keep this in mind, okay? And I want everybody to know this. And just keep hope alive because the universe always bends to the arc of truth. Okay, again, keep it in mind. Let's end this with a little hope and a little heat because if you've been watching this and thinking, where's the justice? Baby, you're not alone. Diddy is I don't think justice was served yet. There's whispers of charges in California, maybe New York, maybe federal RICO, and maybe they'll file, or maybe they won't. But I'm gonna tell you what I do know, and what I do think. Justice doesn't always come in a form of a courtroom. Sometimes it shows up in a mirror. And Diddy is a man who survived off control, intimidation, manipulation for over 2 decades. That's not just strategy, that's identity. And now that identity is under threat, Diddy is no longer in control. He's being watched, he's being whispered about, he's being laughed at, he's being outed in court records, sealed deals, and public opinion. And a man like Diddy, baby, he doesn't collapse quietly. And lastly, that brings us to the real danger, Diddy's own nature. See, the most dangerous thing about Diddy isn't what's been proved, it's what he still believes he can get away with. And that's why whether or not charges are ever filed again,
and no
he's
longer
gonna
has
make
a
mistake
voice who will pursue
because Diddy
justice
can't
for
help. But Diddy, he can't stand being humiliated. He can't sit still. He can't stop asserting power even when the world is saying stop. So when you ask where justice is, it might not be in a jury verdict. It might not come from the FBI. And it might not come from California or New York. It might come from Diddy's own hand. From the one bad night where he can't contain himself. From the next Jane he underestimates. From the next phone he gets to destroy. From a fixer who's had none. Or from the escorts that have jet lag and they're mad he flew them out on Southwest Spirit Airlines. Baby, a reckoning is coming. And it's bigger than the courtroom. This is bigger than one trial. This is about power. This is about silence. This is about what happens when you spend 20 years playing God and thinking the world won't bite you back. So for every survivor, every viewer, every person who felt like they were losing hope, don't, because justice isn't always loud, but it is patient, and it doesn't need a press release to hit. Sometimes the biggest fall comes, not when the system stops you, but when your own ego drives you into the fire. And baby, Diddy is already holding that match. Anyway, y'all let me know what you think in the comments. I will talk to y'all later.